Whether the Minister is concerned that Advanced Pit Stop Tyre Company has advertised for 28 interns through her JobBridge scheme the second time round for this company, which is obviously a displacement of proper and work at decent wages and a gross abuse of the young unemployed and taxpayers.
Minister, number 111.
To date, over 25,200 job seekers have participated on JobBridge, and I'm happy to tell you there are currently 6,400 participants in JobBridge. So the scheme has proved extremely popular with people who are unfortunately unemployed and who have been unable to get work experience. In the past, internships tended to be offered in professional graduate-type roles and proved to be a very effective entry route into employment in the professions for people, particularly with higher education, who had family supports or family networks which enabled them to avail of this type of opportunity. Unfortunately, people without these supports, without these family networks or contacts, could not avail of internships, as to do so would have caused them to lose their entitlement to their job seekers payment. JobBridge addresses this issue and also opens up internships as a route to employment for people with lower levels of skills or little in the way of employment experience. This breaks the cycle whereby in order to get a job, one requires experience, but in order to get experience, one requires a job. That's the catch-22 that so many have been caught in and that JobBridge seeks to break. JobBridge is a voluntary scheme. Interns are free to choose whether or not to participate. Accordingly, if the scheme is to be of benefit to lower-skilled or inexperienced job seekers, it requires host organisations to offer a range of internships across the employment spectrum. I am not therefore disposed to selectively limit the availability of internships, and the Department has a number of controls in place to prevent abuse of the scheme. These include requirements on host organisations to provide a mentor to the intern, to sign and operate a standard agreement, to submit regular monitoring reports to the Department, and to cooperate with random monitoring visits. Over 4,400 monitoring visits have been concluded to date. Given that there have been about 9,000 host organisations around the country, that is in a hugely high level of very detailed monitoring, and 98% of the visits were found to be satisfactory. There are also limits placed on the number of internships that can be offered by any one organisation related to the number of staff employed by the company, and there are restrictions on the repeat or sequential use of internships. I'm satisfied, based on the Department's own monitoring visits and the report of the independent evaluation, that these controls are working effectively.
Deputy Higgins.
Minister, you didn't address the issue of Advanced Pit Stop with good reason, because this blatant exploitation calls your bluff and bluster on this JobBridge scheme. Advanced Pit Stop is the Irish arm of a major multinational tyre company. Advertising for 28 interns on JobBridge is providing for a displacement of proper full-time jobs. That's quite clear. The advertisement by Advanced Pit Stop offers €50 a week, specifying a 40-hour week. That's €1.25 an hour. Minister, that beats even the super exploitation Gamma Construction Company in terms of exploitation, which we blew out of the water in 2005. What does the Minister make of two science companies advertising for interns on €50 a week and specifying that the interns must have a PhD, a doctorate in science?
Thank you, Deputy.
One company describes itself as being a chemistry, physics and other sciences manipulating atoms to make molecules for new products better known as nanotechnology. The very cutting edge of industry and technology, we are told, and they're offering €50 a week to PhDs.
Thank you, Deputy.
Is this the brave new world that the Labour Party and the government is now sponsoring through JobBridge?
Thank you, Minister.
Well, I think the Deputy, like some others in this House, has a very strange attitude to employment and to people getting employment. Sometimes when I listen to you, I think you'd rather prefer if people stayed unemployed, and perhaps you feel maybe they'll listen to you more or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But what I can say, what I can say, Deputy, right. First of all, people are in receipt of a job seekers. If that, for instance, was a married person with a spouse and 3 children, they would be possibly getting €400 or €500 a week in terms of a total social welfare package, and that would be significantly higher if, for instance, they also had a rent supplement. They were in receipt of a rent supplement. What I want to say to you is that giving people an additional top-up of €50 is intended to help people with things like travel costs and other expenses of going out on the JobBridge. You talk about the motor industry. I think one of the most important things to understand in Ireland is that there are huge numbers of people, Deputy, you mightn't be aware of this, but there are significant numbers of people, particularly young men, extremely interested in working in anything to do with the motor trade or the motor industry.
Thank you, Minister.
Unfortunately, we don't have, because of the construction and the crash in the economy, we are only now returning to the restoration of full-time apprenticeships in relation to those employments. But what I would say is that there is a significant interest in working in such employment. They may be a bit beneath you, because you mightn't be interested in doing them, but they're certainly of interest to some people who have come forward to take them.
Minister, Advanced Pit Stop had a cohort of interns that finished in the summer of last year. They then went for their cooling off period of 6 months, and now they're back in the market again for 28. If you hadn't facilitated this kind of exploitation of young workers through this cheap labour scheme, they would have been obliged to hire workers at real rates of pay. That's the reality. So it's displacement and substitution of the worst kind, and you're facilitating this type of a gross abuse of young workers in our society. And you didn't comment on doctorates or people with doctorates being enticed, in inverted commas, to work for €50 a week. Will you get real and address the situation that is going on there, which is gross exploitation? Minister, if you continue with this, take the name Labour off the banner of your party.
Thank you, Deputy.
Because this type of exploitation is a disgrace and is an utter insult to the founders of the Labour movement in this country.
Thank you. Final reply, Minister.
Well, all I can say is that the Labour Party is the party of work, Deputy. You may wish to be a particular, I think you want to see Ireland as a country of welfare only, with nobody at work. I think you're deeply wrong, and I think your attitude is completely out of date, because people who have found themselves out of work due to the crisis are extremely anxious to get back into employment. You spoke about PhDs being requested. One of the sad things that I have encountered as Minister has been people with extraordinary levels of qualifications and a desire to work who have found themselves locked out of employment. They don't want to stay on welfare, even though by European standards, and particularly by the standards of our nearest neighbour, our social welfare system is a very, very strong and well-financed social welfare system. People don't want to stay there. They want actually to become financially independent and to go into employment. And remember that somebody, as I said to you, with a family, and some people taking up JobBridge have families, they're receiving very significant supports, including in some cases additional supports around rent supplement. They can't, in the past they would have had to give all of that up in order simply to get some work experience. We are actually trying, Deputy Higgins, to get a country, a nation back to work and into employment. And this is one of the ways place in which, as Indicon has showed, 61% of people go on to secure further employment.
Deputy Sean Kine,